Okay, good day to you. It's evening here in New York. This is the Seeker's Reset, and my name is Robert, and I continue to record from my childhood home here, where I have been undergoing the most humbling part of my reset. Um, and that will be the case until I figure out what the right way is to take care of myself financially, especially as I wrestle with matters of morality and spirituality and frankly, just my own health. And all of those things combine together to make it harder than it may usually be to to get on my feet. But I am taking steps every day and learning about the very important topic of personal responsibility. And that's what I'm going to talk about in this episode. So, personal responsibility is something that we've all heard of for sure, and it's something that, in general, I find that we as seekers don't have much of. Now, see, and this is where we have to distinguish. There are a lot of seekers out there who have money, who have homes, who have businesses, who have even families. A lot of seekers have these things. So personal responsibility is not measured by worldly, material, physical things, at least not primarily. It's measured by a sense internally of one's ability to take care of oneself, not just for oneself, but as an act of love for everyone else. Because when we're not personally responsible, we actually impose ourselves on everybody that we are in contact with because we're incapable of containing ourselves. So it spills out in our relationships, even just in the way we interact with strangers. It will always spill out. Needs will spill out. Okay. And we will hold others responsible for those needs in the course of every day. Of course, the people who are closest to us, like a partner or family members or friends or employees or colleagues, they will feel this the most. But most people don't feel a lot of it because we are so enmeshed in codependent relationships everywhere we look that it's sort of the standard. And so it actually requires a pretty high degree of sensitivity to recognize where we are engaging in this kind of personally irresponsible behavior. Um, so then, what exactly is required for personal responsibility? Well, on the physical level, yes, being able to take care of oneself. Okay, so that's basically money, food, and shelter, right? And really, at the end of the day, it's food and shelter, right? Because money is only a tool to get food and shelter, um, and clothing and things like that. I guess we can include that under shelter. So money is the tool that we in our world require in order to get food and shelter under most circumstances, right? There are exceptions to that. So that's the physical level and the ability to take care of the people that we promise to take care of. And that could range from friends to employees to children to a spouse, a parent, whatever the case may be, but the ability to follow through on those commitments. So those things are personal responsibility on the physical level. And then we can look at it on the emotional level. Are we capable of feeling, experiencing, and living with our own emotions? Or do we need to engage other people in that process? Which is not to say that it's not sometimes useful to have some help for the purpose of becoming emotionally mature. and emotionally responsible. I think actually all of us need some help at some point doing that. And even when we are emotionally mature, we will engage in some interactions about our emotions. But at the end of the day, emotional personal responsibility has to be the ability to feel and experience our emotions without putting them on or making them the responsibility of others, which I have been absolutely horrible at throughout my life. And only in the last couple of years, especially in the last 8 months, have I begun to recognize this and to go through the really painful experience of beginning to feel my own emotions where I used to project them at others or unconsciously ask others to take them on for me. I've only learned all of this through divine truth, which I've referred to in other videos. I have to make a video explaining my perspective on divine truth so that I can refer to that video. Divine truth, you can find links to it below. It is the teachings of Jesus and Mary returned to earth now, and in those teachings, personal responsibility is a very, very essential component of our relationship with God, as well as our ability to just become what we're capable of becoming. So check out those links below, and I'll have to find a video specifically on that subject and put it below. I've been kind of remiss in how I've been including different resources in the descriptions and not even completing the descriptions in some cases. I have so much that I want to say, and I'm so new at this that like it's not even beginning to come out right. So my personal responsibility here is I have to hold myself to a higher standard in how I do these things, because this is an incredibly intimate and challenging process for me to share these things. And I haven't even begun to scratch the surface of what I really want to share, because it's almost like I have to go through these layers to get there. So thank you if you have any interest at all. Okay. That kind of interlude aside, back to personal responsibility. We've talked about physical and emotional levels of personal responsibility. And I'm sure you could say there's a spiritual level to this as well, and perhaps in divine truth terms, there would be a sexual level, you can put potentially a mental or psychological level. There's personal responsibility on every level. But I want to talk about something very interesting regarding personal responsibility. And it's just to break down a couple of terms. The first one is responsibility. And most of you will have heard somebody at some point say, break up the word into responsibility, right? So a great deal of our responsibility in life is how we respond to things, right? Okay, makes sense. I'm not going to argue with that. It's not the point of this episode, because what I really want to get to is the other term, which is personal. Okay, now you might think, well, personal, why do we break that term down? Well, bear with me. Hear me out. In order to take personal responsibility, we're taking responsibility for ourselves, okay? But in order to take responsibility for ourselves, is a pretty important ingredient. We actually have to know who we are, okay? Personal responsibility requires, perhaps first and foremost, self-knowledge. Because I can do all the actions in the world that look responsible, right? I can have a job. I can be a pillar of the community. I can take care of my family. I can have food on the table every night. My home can be clean. I could have plans for the future that I'm good at achieving. I can set goals and achieve them. But if these are not aligned with who I am, what good are they in the end? Not to say they won't have value, but in the end, what good are they? Personal responsibility requires that the actions we take as a responsible person not only look responsible, but that they actually meet our particular needs. We have to know our needs. We have to know our sensitivities. We have to know our preferences. We have to know our desires. We have to know our passions. And in the end, somewhere we will discover we have to know our purpose. We have to know our personality, our nature. These are other terms that Divine Truth would use. Personal responsibility requires self-knowledge. We will never be truly personally responsible without self-knowledge. Everything else is going through the motions. This is the hardest part for me. There have been many times in my life where I was able to achieve impressive things and be an organized person, but I have yet to take those skills and utilize them in alignment with who I really am. In fact, when I am in the process of, in fact, when the truer self inside of me comes to the surface, it often blows up everything else, which is why during the course of a seeker's reset, most of us will go through awakenings or dark nights of the soul or other destructive experiences in our lives, because basically we are breaking out of the order that we imposed upon who we really are, and that we and others imposed upon who we really are. And I would encourage everybody to partially conceive of those things, the dark night of the soul, all the the purging that goes with that, the awakenings that can be very, very intense, the midlife crisis, the healing crisis, all of these things that happen that are almost always associated with the process of going through a reset, like the one I'm talking about on this channel. They are actually almost always us breaking out of the order, the responsibility that we have imposed on ourselves. And we often initially interpret this as disastrous, like what's going wrong? When in reality, it's just a prison break. It's the blowing up of the things that are not, of the things that we have created in our lives that are not aligned with who we really are. And so again, when we take personal responsibility of knowing who we are, well, then we will create things that are sustainable, things that don't need to be blown up by dark nights of the soul, things that don't need to be blown up by awakenings. My life has been full of these experiences, and it's only now, after about 5 or 6 of these massive experiences, maybe more, of these massive experiences throughout my life, it's only now that I'm beginning to grasp this. That every time I had one of these experiences where I broke out and my life shattered, I put it back together in the wrong way again, because I didn't respect myself. I tried to take responsibility for my life in a way that didn't respect myself. And I'm going through it right now. I'm going through this very dilemma right now. In fact, when I survey my life right now, part of my personal responsibility is to recognize that, yeah, everything is a mess. But if I look at the patterns in my life, and I would encourage everybody to be very meticulous in looking at the patterns in their lives. And I'll begin to do more videos on this in the future, because it's one of the things that I'm both passionate about and that I think I've seen in a way that a lot of people don't see. But if you're here, you probably have seen some of it. So I'm not sure I even have to explain it very much, but the patterns in my life show me that the dilemmas I'm facing now involving my health, my relationships, my livelihood, where I live, my sense of the way in which the world is completely out of sync with what's true, and yet I have to try to connect with it in some way without turning into a rebel wanting to destroy it all. But this dilemma has been in my life since I was a boy. And every so often, roughly every 3 to 5 years, I would go on an upswing and reach a peak of some kind. Then either I would explode or the bottom would drop out. The feeling was different at different times. And then some months of healing or some months of recovery, and then the same process. But the dilemma, the underlying problem, the underlying tangle of beliefs, the underlying wounds and injuries that drive the decisions that lead me to these situations, they have been there my whole life almost. Everything I'm confronting right now at 42 years old, just with more consciousness than ever, and potentially higher stakes, as in it feels more imminently dangerous. This has been there my whole life, repeating in different ways. So personal responsibility requires for me to know that and to make choices based on that. And the good side of this is that if we take that kind of personal responsibility, it means that it's the start of our real life. Whereas personal responsibility so often felt like a burden in my life. But when it's actually aligned with who we are, potentially with our souls, it's the beginning of our lives. Personal responsibility becomes the catalyst, one of the catalysts for starting the life that we're actually intended to have, to learning who we are and actually beginning to potentially enjoy that reality, that we get to discover ourselves and create. We get to discover what makes each of us unique, what makes you you, as opposed to me. And to find the beauty in the coming together of those differences, because differences on that level are not the same as differences of opinion, although there will be. But differences on the level of what makes you unique and me unique, that's baked into the design of this universe for a reason, meaning we're supposed to have those differences so we can do things together, so we can experience things together in unique ways. So personal responsibility leads to that. It leads to collaboration. It leads to cooperation. It leads to creation in a way that is, as I said earlier, sustainable, real, soulful. And I don't mean soulful like music. I mean soulful like, imagine a world that was based, that a world that we were part of creating, that was coming from our souls. Personal responsibility leads to those things. We cannot get there without it. So it's not just a step of maturity, of being able to maintain oneself as an adult, although it is. It's a factor. It's the factor, probably the primary factor, one of the primary factors in allowing us to become who we are and to create a world in which that's respected, where we respect one another for who we are, in our nature and in our personality. I was kind of surprised when I discovered this. I don't know what you will think, but it takes on a whole new meaning. to me. So I hope that you've enjoyed this take on personal responsibility. There's a lot more to it. Mostly, we could have a discussion about when personal responsibility kicks in, we realize that it's up to us to heal. You to heal you, me to heal me. It's up to us to resolve the things that hold us back. And we are capable of it. We through personal responsibility, we begin to learn our strength. We begin to learn how capable we all are. We begin to learn what divine truth says about God creating us as the pinnacle of creation. I haven't experienced a lot of this yet, but it's an awareness that's building in me, and I have some small evidence of it in my life. Well, meaningful evidence, but still small. So thank you for listening. I very much appreciate it. But more than that, I look forward to the time when I will interact more with some of you and get to know you and begin to enjoy this process together. That's one of the major goals of this channel. You can see some other information down below. I'm going to pump out some more of these real soon because I have some time and space in the next few days, and I've had some inspiration. But as I said, I'm just beginning to scratch the surface of what I'd like to share and what I think I have to share. So get ready for it if you're paying attention. Thank you again for watching The Seeker's Reset. Take care.